everyone. I'm Shreyasi Pal. I'm Associate Professor at BMS School of Architecture, Yelahanka, Bengaluru. We are proud to be a NAC accredited and NIRF ranked independent architectural college operating under the esteemed BMS Educational Trust. Now, today's event is part of a continuing series of research orientation seminars designed to foster a vibrant research culture amongst the academic architecture community. These seminars are open to all senior students and faculty, and we are delighted to welcome participants from various parts of India. We encourage you to stay engaged with this series as we support one another in navigating the challenges of scientific research. Ma'am, our director, Shaila ma'am, has already, I think, welcomed our guests. So I'll directly move over to a very quick introduction. So, dear participants, it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for the 8th event in the BMSSA Research Dialogue Series, Dr. Arindam Biswas, Associate Professor at the Department of Architecture and Planning, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, India. And he's also the head of the Sustainable Urban and Regional Analysis Lab. Dr. Biswas holds a doctorate in urban planning from the University of Tokyo, a Master of City Planning from IIT Kharagpur, and a Bachelor of Architecture from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. He has received numerous prestigious awards, including the Institute Research Fellowship at IIT Roorkee for Outstanding Young Faculty, the AACM Duo India Fellowship, the DAAD Fellowship from Germany, and the MEXT Fellowship from Japan. He has also completed a certificate program on international environmental leadership at the Asian Program for Incubation of Environmental Leadership from University of Tokyo. Dr. Biswas has conducted research sponsored by key research foundations of the Government of India, including Department of Science and Technology, the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, the Ministry of Education, the Indian Council of Social Science Research, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the NBCC India Limited. His projects have also been sponsored by international institutions like Royal Academy of Engineering, the British Council, GCRF, UKRI, and the United Kingdom. With 5 editorial books, 16 book chapters, and over 90 peer-reviewed publications in journals and international conferences, Dr. Biswas's research focuses on urban infrastructure, inclusive growth, resilience, housing and informality, the knowledge economy, and regional development. We are honored to have Dr. Biswas with us today. Please join me in welcoming him to share his valuable insights. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a little awkward to listen to your profile. Thank you. Thank you, Shaila. Shall I start?
Yeah. So I just again, as Shreyasi said, just wanted to give you the kind of a research, what exactly we are kind of a research dialogue is. Every month we have this research dialogue series by a very eminent researcher who are working in different fields. There is no as such a theme, but we wanted to know like kind of a basically research methods, the kind of a research methods, or maybe the tools, or sometimes software related. So a couple of sessions were so interesting that they were focusing more on AI, how the research literature review can be used with the AI tools and all that. And especially the intention was to the faculty who have already joining for architecture PhD program. And most of them have part-time PhDs. So these kind of sessions are really interesting, and they are feeling it more valuable also. So that was a main intention, that we are doing it always online and connecting with a lot of people, nationally, even internationally, especially focusing on research methods, and then the various approaches, maybe sometimes different topics, how they have dealt with that. So this is what the brief about this research dialogue series, and totally taken care by Shreyasi. She is working hard to identify always a very good researcher from various background. We have not limited only from architecture background, but again economics and planners and designers and all such different things. So we wanted to know the different approaches. The moment we come to the research, then a lot of different, we don't need to focus only for architecture. In fact, there are a lot of different programs and all that, it doesn't matter. So that's the reason we started this. So I again welcome you again to BMS School of Architecture virtually, I can say. but very happy to have you here in person as well. So with this, I would again request you to go ahead with your session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for it's
Thank
a very noble work that you have
Shared.
started, and I think she forgot she was my junior in Calvin University.
I didn't
Only
forget. I
for
know
only
that.
1 year we have like kind of overlap. My
Okay.
final year
Mhm.
probably her first year, something like that. So
Okay.
that's it. Congratulations. But she's very dynamic and hardworking that you have got. So I just share my screen. I hope there won't be an issue because we also use MS Team very frequently. Can
Yeah,
you
I
see
see.
my
Yes.
screen?
Yes,
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 yes.
yes.
Yeah, perfect. So, this is I just make it full screen.
I'm trying to check.
So I already shared the title. This is Housing Affordability for Urban Poor in India. This is actually a research which is being done by Prabhat. He is one of my PhD scholar, recently graduated. He is presently uh, uh, associated in PJ Kalam Technical University in Lucknow. And this is a part of his thesis that was got recently over in March this year. So so it's a Prabhat is almost like a co-author or practically the major uh, contributor to this work. So to give you the basic introduction of housing, how or what is the need for our research idea to be initiated. It's a very long research that has happened 6-7 years back, and at that time, housing was a major concern. Even today, still the PMUI urban was a very nascent state when we started this process. So housing generally, historically, throughout the globe, it is being it's seen as a public utility, but over the year, the economic and financial requirement or demand also made housing as an economic opportunity. There are a lot of livelihood, lot of finance, lot of economic rotations that actually depends on housing supply. But it is very difficult, particularly for a country like us, where we have so much population, 1.4, and we are also experiencing a rapid urbanization. So, as per our present definition of urbanization, 2011, like 13 years back, we are almost 34% urban. And if we consider the present scenario, we may have surpassed more than 40% as an urban population. So that means almost 60 million, almost 600 million people are there in the urban area, and there is a significant shortage of housing, both in terms of dilapidated and also a real shortage of housing there in our cities. It is mostly for bigger cities, the metropolitan cities or class 1, class 2 cities, where we have experiencing major shortages of housing. And most of these shortages are, of course, in the LIG and EWS category. In the graph to the right, you can see that there is a very simple curve of demand and supply. And the shortage, which is, it's a kind of an prediction by TG12, which was set up by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, the technical group 12. And they have sort of, it's not specific or very accurate here, but at least anticipated around 96% of shortage are from LIG and economically weaker section. And whereas 4% is MIG and HIG. And at the market supply is actually the reverse, where most of the supply are in MIG and HIG category, and lesser
Mr. Arindam,
Yeah.
Mr. Arindam, can I stop you? We are not able to hear you very clearly, and some of the words we are missing. So, can we just address that before you go further?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better.
Was there a noise? I think probably there was a noise.
Yes, there was some disturbance, but this is better. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and also Shaila just mentioned that it's not only about architecture, it's also about the planning and housing. And although my bachelor was in architecture, but my most of the research work is in planning and housing. So I take that liberty to go into the detail of some of the researches that we have explored in this project. The basic background to initiate this research was that, of course, there was not much concentrated efforts in terms of housing affordability study. When we say housing affordability, it is not only housing affordability, it's not only about supply and demand, but we are also exploring whether the housing was affordable. For example, somebody purchasing or renting a house, that is the place that one has to live, but that may not be affordable, but yet the household or the family has to shell out that much amount of money to survive in our cities. So we were focusing most on this affordability come supply and demand issue, and in a situation, I think most of you will also agree that in India, whenever we go and study something like this, there is lack of data. So most of the time we end up doing some sort of sampling survey where we try to collect or accumulate data. Sometimes it's over a period of time because there is no structured and concise data set that are available. So in this case, it's a data that is being taken from one of the private enterprises, McKinsey Global Institute, where they have it's an anticipation. It's more or less a kind of their projection in terms of the housing market, that the total in 2030, probably there would be total market size of aggregate slum and non-slum population will be more than 38 million households by 2030. And given the present scenario of housing supply, so that is a huge jump from the existing scenario in 2010, where we have 25 million households. So in spite of the additional household supply, there will still remain that much of unexplored or unsupplied housing scenarios. Now it's a very alarming situation, because if it is towards the lower tier of the population, that will make our cities more prone to slumifications or informalifications. So the research focuses on two cities, Lucknow and Kanpur. These are the two biggest cities from Uttar Pradesh, and apart from the 6 mega cities that we have, this is also in fairly big cities. We have almost 2.8 million, 2.7 million population from Lucknow and Kanpur, which is almost in Indian ranking. It ranks around 12 and 13. In terms of economy, these are also economically robust in terms of the state's economy. These are the cities which are providing the state a massive economic boost, and in it also has the major issues in terms of housing supply and demand mismatch, particularly in LIG and economically weaker sections. So this is some of the facts in terms of a city, and in terms of the state, and in terms of the city of of Lucknow and Kanpur. So in terms of slums, till 2001, the the city has more than 412, like it's a chronologically growth of slums since the last 50, 60 years, both in Lucknow and Kanpur. So almost like 4 lakhs and 6 lakhs populations are in slums both in Lucknow and Kanpur, which is a significant big number. And in terms of percentage of slum population, where Lucknow and Kanpur has much more than the overall India percentage. So almost like 27 to 26, 27, 26% of its populations are living in slum. So that is a major. So you can understand it's out of every four household or every 4%, 1% is a slum dweller in the city, which is also higher than the state average, which is around 23% in UP. So this gives us the valid reasons why we chose Lucknow and Kanpur to be our uh, study area. So yes, so when we went into the research, the first one is about the methodology. And in order to have an academic endeavor, we first started to identifying the concept of affordability and exploring various methods that is being used globally to measure housing affordability. So in the end, we focus mostly three types. One is the ratio method, the second one is the relative method, and the third one is about the residual method. So these are the three methods that we've studied mostly in order to identify what, or in order to define even the scope of housing affordability in the research. And then thereafter, we went into the detailed investigations of the study area, that including uh, division of the study area in different zones and identification of those zones, and then doing some sampling survey of each of the zones, which was randomly selected for the data analysis process. And uh, although I'm not going into the details, but there was eventually a detailed framework of housing affordability and housing demand assessment that was introduced with the hedonic pricing model, both in terms of pricing value and also in terms of demand and supply estimation. So the initial one, when we approached the, as I mentioned, that there are three different methods that mostly is being studied, was ratio approach, the relative measurement, and the residual approach. And we can see that most of the methods or the techniques are used in the Western developed countries, and very less in from the developing situation. For example, the HUD guidelines or housing plus transport index or amenity-based housing affordability, uh, then NAR housing affordability or shelter poverty measure in UK, or home purchase model in Australia. So most of these are from the West. We could find two from Indian context, one from RBI, the measurement of RBI affordability measure. And there was, as I mentioned, that occasionally we all have these task forces prepared from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So they also sometimes come up with an affordability index or affordability definition. In most cases, the residual demand or residual income method is the widely accepted scenario of housing affordability. Residual income is that income which a family as a household they earn, and after deduction of the basic deduction like tax and any other kinds of or their major expenditure like meals and other utilities, the income which are left, it's almost like the savings. And most of the time, there is a percentage of that if the housing either purchased or being rented within that percentage is being considered as affordable. So, for example, HUD would suggest 30% housing plus transport, where the housing and transport cost combined. Consider 45% amenity based. It consider 50%, 50 to 80% of all amenities, which is different than the residual where the cost is based on the amenity. In India, it was on the gross income rather than the net or the residual income. And the housing affordability index, it was family income and home price data. RBI also came up with a measure which was housing price index and family income decided by the government of India. But here, most of the time we take the mean because the in unavailability of data. In Australia, they put family income after subtracting the housing cost of the city from the city itself. So initially we identified some of the attributes of all these different kinds of methods that was studied, and some of and categorize these attributes and try to see that which of the methods have talked about all these attributes. These attributes, for example, income of household, family or household size, household compositions, finance in terms of availability of credit, housing expenditure, non-housing expenditure, and then location. And try to see that which of the methods have included such kinds of attributes in their definition or considered such kinds of attributes while defining housing affordability. And we found that shelter poverty, shelter poverty method, where it was done in US, UK, it had considered maximum amount of attributes, 6 out of the 8 attributes that we identified, and housing plus transport affordability index, which considered 5. Same with amenity-based housing affordability index. So in this case, it's a kind of a binary summation method. There is no weightage, so we consider all attributes to be equally important. Just to take an idea that which are the guidelines or which are the measuring methods are more inclusive, consider more attributes than the others. So then we gone into the detail of these 3 methods and try to see that how these 3 methods are actually, if we apply on our study area, how it will look like. So the residual income method, the housing plus transportation, affordability index, and the affordability measures. So the first one, since we have 2 case areas, the first one was about the residual income method, and we saw that in terms of the home purchase model, that someone has purchased a home with a repayment period, considering that the household or the person has taken a credit or mortgage for the loan, for the purchase with a 20 years of repayment period. So how much percentage of or what would be the affordability if there are different income brackets? So on the y-axis, we have this affordable housing cost, which is the monthly EMI, and also the monthly household income in the x-axis, with the consideration that there is a considerable amount of saving. Right? So, so we can see that the larger household size, for example, household size of 5 or more, obviously the disposable income would be very low because their expenditure is more, which is proportional to their household number or size of the household. So below 20,000 household income does not have enough housing affordability to purchase a new house. So most of the time we see that below 20,000 households are end up in a rental housing if they do not inherit any housing in the city. Even in that case, if they inherit any housing in the city, the condition of the house makes it tricky to live in. The average living standard of families families who are earning more than 30,000 has enough surplus to afford a new house without compromising the non-housing necessity. In case of, we consider 30% rule, so we can see that it does not follow with either with the maximum affordable housing cost EMI or the minimum housing cost EMI. In the second one, we did this for the other city, and we find a similar kinds of a situation where we did it for a lesser number of household number, that is 3. And here we found that when we compare the 30% criteria that for families with lower income or below 25,000 or so, so for them the disposable income is much lower than the 30%. So even with a household income of 25,000 or low, it is very difficult for someone, even in the cities of Lucknow or Kanpur, to have their own house. Even it doesn't matter the size of the house, but since the cost of EMI is so much that it is very difficult for them to own a house within that margin of income. We did the same study for rental housing, and in case of rental housing, of course, since it's much cheaper and people have the option to choose between different renting, the location of the rent, and also the facilities or the size or the utilities that come along with the rent, there is a little bit more leverage in terms of rental housing. So we find that for EWS category, the actual affordable housing cost is much below than the 30% that is being mentioned in the US. Mostly household size and composition are 2 important factors along with the household income for deciding housing affordability. Yeah, even for the household size, affordable housing cost falls much below than 30%, whereas for higher income group, the affordable housing cost is much higher than 30%. So we find that like this kinds of finding actually justify that why 96% of housing shortage is lying in EWS and LIG category. In the second one, what we did, we studied the housing plus transportation affordability index. So in this case also, we identified 2 different cities and then divided them into different zones, considering that would be their origin and destination, or at least the average origin and destination, and the trips that will be generated within them, most of the percentage of that. And in terms of to identify the housing cost, we try to see that the trend analysis of housing rate in Lucknow with different kinds of housing price index. Most of the time, this is being procured from the National Housing Bank Residence Index. The housing rate calculation for each zone was done from open source data, real estate portals, and compiled and taken mean and median from there. The housing cost calculation for EWS and LIG was as per the prescribed size in terms of the sampling that comes from Cochrane formula. The calculation of monthly housing cost, that is the EMI, for 80% loan to value ratio and 8% in ROI. The house cost calculation for each zone was done from the open source data. For transportation cost, the overall share of the conveyance in terms of expenditure of both the cities was considered. Auto ownership cost, auto cost, and the transit cost from the census, and conversion of the transportation cost to 2021 cost were done by incorporating the inflation data. So H plus T index calculation for EWS and LIG was done both in these two cities. And in the graph, you can see that there are three things. But the one is the housing affordability index, transportation, housing cost, the transportation gas cost, and then the household income is divided by the household income that is being put into the H plus T affordability index. So there are these 8 different zones have been identified, and 8 different zones are calculated in case of to identify the H plus T index. So these are the zones which give you some of the idea of zone-wise H plus T affordability index. In the left one, you can see it is a housing cost, the average housing cost in each of the zones. And the right one, when we consider housing plus transportation, there is a slight difference in terms of overall cost when we consider transportation. For example, zone 4, zone 7 shows a significant variation, same with zone 1 and zone 2. But zone 6, zone 3, zone 5, zone 3, zone 6, zone 3, and zone 8 almost remains the same when we consider housing or housing plus transportation cost affordability. So this is so this is the thing I just mentioned in terms of our H plus T affordability index. So this one is for EWS and this one is for LIG that we have done. So in terms of difference between EWS and LIG, there is a significant difference when we consider H plus T affordability index. So if you can see that this one, on the right one, you have H plus T for EWS. On the right one here, the H plus T of LIG. And in zone 6, zone 3, which was much better for LIG, but it is actually reverse for EWS. Those are very difficult or there are more expensive zones when we consider H plus T index. So there are some variations what we found in terms of considering different indexes and also variation between different economic categories. So the blindfolded supply of housing for both EWS and LIG in each of the zone need a significant rethinking. That's the basic findings, or with the basic conclusion that we can make from here, that there should be more gradation in terms of economic strata when we're trying to meet in terms of policies. We're trying to meet the demand with housing supply to specific socioeconomic classifications. So our basic inference is the H+T index shows that the transportation cost plays a major role in defining housing affordability, although it may not be consciously considered either by consumers or by policymakers or the housing suppliers. It increases much of above 45% when transportation cost is also considered with housing cost, and this makes various locations in the city to be unaffordable due to the increased transportation cost. The lower sections of the society has higher impact on high transportation cost and affordability, as it directly affects their access to education and health, which actually is a long-term problem because any consequence in terms of education and health to the next generation keep the it's almost creating those poverty trap per household that is very difficult to get rid of. So the next one is about the affordability measure. In this case, as we know that we have this definition as per the Indian context: EWS, LIG, MIG, and HIG, and also we have different CLSS schemes. So that is the subsidy in terms of housing loan that one is entitled once their income falls in this category. So up to 3 lakhs is EWS. You get is interest subsidy of 6.5%, and your maximum amount of loan that you are entitled to get is 6.5% interest subsidy is 6 lakhs, and the carpet area 30. And then there is LIG 3 to 6 subsidy is same. Loan amount is also 6 lakhs. The carpet area is 60%. So these credit linked subsidy schemes also encourage you to invest your housing in addition to the government subsidy that is being received through PMAY or other kinds of housing schemes. And then there are MIG, and there are two categories of MIG: 6 to 12 lakhs, 12 to 18 lakhs. That is the annual income, and then your interest subsidy is less. 4 and 3, the loan amount is higher, and also the unit area is also higher. So the way the affordability measure works is that the carpet area price from the National Housing Bank Residex, they select it from there. Then the loan amount is considered as per the credit link subsidy scheme and the CAP housing classes. The loan amount calculated assuming a 80% loan to value ratio for 4 income groups. So these are the 4 income groups where 80% are considered as a loan amount. EMI is calculated required in terms of 20 years with 7% return on investment. And monthly income is calculated as PMI income slabs for 4 income groups. So this is the way affordability measure is being calculated. Now we have taken directly from a source, so we have not done anything different from the source that was suggested. And these are the 3. Sorry, we missed one. These are the 3 figures that we show in terms of different cities of UP. So interest subsidy has larger impact in increasing affordability for EWS and LIG as compared to MIG, because in case of MIG, you can see that both the red and blue line is almost like virtually superimposing with each other, and the 30% is the traditional theoretical affordability index that has been measured. So it reduces it makes our housing more affordable for EWS and LIG. Fast-growing cities like Noida and Greater Noida are unaffordable for EWS and LIG as compared to larger but slow-growing cities like Lucknow and Kanpur. So it's almost like more local consideration when we provide such kinds of public policy from the national front, to consider different city classes based on their economy or growth, and also proximity to larger cities, for example, Delhi or Gurgaon, that makes the EWS and LIG more of unaffordable in spite of similar kinds of CLSS support. So there might be some differentiation in terms of support, either in terms of more value or in terms of more subsidy or in terms of more time to repay may be considered, considering the proximity of such cities to other big cities. So this one I just skip. So this is on the descriptive analysis that has been done, and this analysis has been done with the zones that were identified in Lucknow and Kanpur, and also identifying the household numbers. So in this case, it is in Lucknow city where 8 zones were identified, and you can see that at the top there are 415 total number. That is the total number of household survey that has been done in all these 8 zones, and each of the zones has different number of households that are also there, like 70, 35, 75, 40, 90, depends on that particular zone's population. And there are 2 kinds of variables that we have identified. One is the housing related variables, and then which is the physical more, and the household related variables, which are more social and socioeconomic. So the physical variables in terms of dwelling unit size, covered area, ownership status, structural conditions, typology, kitchen, whether the availability of kitchen, toilets, water supply, whether they have piped water supply or not, and amenities. And it's a mean that has been provided here in the zone. And the household related in terms of age, education, household size, the social categories, occupation, income, expenditure pattern, etc. And that has been created in terms of this tabulated form in descriptive analysis. The same thing has been done for Kanpur also. In this case, the total number of sample is more. It is 460, but the deviation was same, with 2 major head of observations, that are housing related variables and the household related variables. So one is the physical aspect of housing of EWS and LIG, and the second one is about the socioeconomic. And then it's a very simple correlation of household related variables of both the cities that has been done. And we find some of the significant attributes. For example, overcrowding, we see a very significant. We also have seen overcrowding with household composition. We also see income and household composition as very significant. We also see income to education, income to age, which are very strongly significant, but there are also some inversely significant or less significant also found. For example, age to household composition, or education to household composition, household size, something like that in case of Lucknow. In case of Kanpur also, we find some significant, very strongly significant, some significant overcrowding, age, income, and occupation. So those are very. It's more like an expected line that we have found in terms of the correlation analysis of household-related variables in both the cities. So after that, we derive one kind of an hedonic price function, where we wanted to know the value of housing in terms of low income or EWS and LIG category. So it's a utility function where it represents a decision-making process of the household, where y equal to pz plus x, where x denotes the composite goodness in terms of physical and social, excluding the housing. So that is the unit price that we have to try to see, and household, and with the assumption that the households strive to maximize their utility while maintaining their financial stability or financial prudence. So this was applied, and the variables that we have considered for estimation of hedonic function, housing price, shelter-related variables. So housing price we got mostly from the market value, and these are the values that we have procured from open sources, because that's the only way we can get the absence of any government published market values. And then we also have the shelter-related variables, for example, the crucial factors have rental cost of a dwelling unit area, categorization of building into pakka, semi-pakka, and kacha. So in this case, there is no further gradation that has been done. It's mostly based on the visual survey. And also the essential amenities such as water supply, bathroom facilities, kitchen, etc. And we have used Likert scale to assess the tenant satisfaction in terms of physical and social amenities. So, this is for Lucknow. Yeah, it's 8 zones. So this is for Lucknow, where we have identified the price function, and we find many significant. For example, kitchen and toilet was a major issue in terms of attached toilet and or separate kitchen that will put your value of your hedonic function much more. Dwelling unit size, although not that much, but still dwelling unit size also an important aspect. Number of rooms, not so much. It's a very surprising is the pakka floor or pakka walls was not that much in terms of importance than kitchen, toilet, or dwelling unit size. In case of Kanpur, we also find similar observation where kitchen, toilet was a major issue in terms of putting the value of EWS and LIG housing in a better situation. The second stage was done after the valuation. The second stage was done in terms of demand, that how much demand for housing, especially in EWS and LIG category, and we found that and in which sectors or which qualitative sectors are the hedonic impression that people would prefer. So we find that housing size is a major housing size, and is a major aspect in terms of demand of a particular unit or particular attribute in a housing situation. And this is also demand for housing in 6 zones. We also find that housing size is a major issue in terms of demand. We do not find much in terms of age or education, because housing is a basic need. So irrespective of age or education, everybody needs some sort of housing. We also do not find much in terms of overcrowding, which was probably prevalent in many of the Western societies. So to conclude our study, the research focuses on the demand side analysis and as well as the hedonic value in terms of the urban poor. In this presentation, I have not included the supply side one. We also did a supply side analysis. The study investigated 2 dimensions of housing demand within the context of mid-sized cities. There might be a variation in if we change the city, that the findings might be different, although we can use the same framework and apply there also. As you mentioned, we use primary survey mostly because of the absence of secondary data. in terms of housing affordability. So there might be some sort of data infusion or data accuracy that might affect the results, but we do not anticipate major changes. There might be some changes in the nitty-gritty in the value. The primary determinant of housing value, regardless of tenure type or time, is the size of living area and then the presence of a separate kitchen with a water tap. That is a major finding. Like even in both the ethnic declaration, we are seeing that presence of separate kitchen and water is a major issue, both in terms of adding value and also when they are asking for the housing demand. The second most prized housing attribute for the slum housing is the provision of a separate room for kitchen and a dedicated access to water tap. Therefore, it is more crucial to prioritize the supply of an individual kitchen equipped with a water connection for each household, regardless of their rent or rent classifications. The structural condition of the house, is a significant attribute for both kinds of tenure. The formulation of policies, what we feel, should include the housing preferences of economically disadvantaged population residing in slum areas. And additionally, this policy should prioritize the provisions for housing in close proximity to the places of employment. This will also help private developer to develop housing scheme as per demand. So these are some of the publications that you can refer to know our work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Participants can ask questions, or you can also leave your questions in the chat box.
Arindam, I have one very basic question wanted to ask. You have mentioned about housing and transportation cost, right? In one of the attribute you have taken that. And how about the land value? Did you consider the land value, or how did you do that in terms of land value? You need to unmute.
So the cost is the cost of owning that house. So that includes
Okay.
the land. If it is a detached housing, that includes the land value. If it is an apartment, then there is no land value. There only the cost of the housing unit. So a person, how much money has to invest, or how much money has to take a credit from the bank to own that housing unit. So that's the cost. Like if it is on the land, so that includes the land. If it is not on the land, then it doesn't include the land.
Okay, so then that will vary, right? Like
yeah, that
zone wise.
That depends on the sampling. But most of the time, EWS and LIG, even if they are on the land doesn't belong to them if they are in slums. So we only consider that land is being given to them and they are only building the house, especially if it is CLSS, credit link subsidy scheme. So then the land has to be on their name. Then only they get the policy benefit. Otherwise they cannot make any.
Okay. And the sampling method, what kind of a sampling method you did? Because I could see like around 7 to 8 zones you have taken, right, for the study area in Kanpur, the one of the map I could see. So what was the sampling size and how was it? What is the sampling size and then the sampling method you have used?
In Kanpur, it was 450.
Okay.
And Lucknow probably in 460 or maybe reverse. And we use this Pochran formula to identify the sampling number.
Okay.
And then even that same formula we used when we did the zoning, just to see at the upper side till we reach the saturation point household serving.
Okay, okay. So just one more last question. The income level you have mentioned. So how did you like what was the data which you have considered to take the income level of the people?
That is as per the government notification. So
Okay,
the 3 to 6 lakhs, suppose if somebody is being identified as EWS by the government, we have considered
okay.
them as EWS. If somebody is identified as LIG,
Uh,
so we have considered them as LIG. So
okay, okay. But that also may vary, right? Like nowadays, if I see even the slum, there are people who are even earning more than that, the standard which
yeah,
is.
yes, yes, of course.
Uh,
Like most of the time, that's another findings that we have, that mostly the government feel that slum people do not have the money. That's always is not the true.
yeah.
If they have the tenure and they have some sort of support in terms of subsidy, they
Mm,
can build their own housing.
correct.
That is another thing that came up. The only problem is the land in some cases, and in some cases the security of the land.
Mm. Okay, very interesting study, in fact, because I personally feel, the data getting it because the salaried income is you get it very clear cut, Now here, since the population which you have taken for the study, they're not the salaried people, and also it is like unaccounted.
Yeah,
But in that case, how the results are like, more, how are you validate the results, the one which you identify based on the schemes of the government?
yeah. Basically, it is very difficult because many of the transactions are in cash.
Yes.
And when you have so much of cash transactions, is even to determine whether 3 lakhs or 6 lakhs,
Yeah.
in some cases, maybe it is false
Yes.
because of the unaccounted value which comes in
Yeah.
the cash.
Yeah.
So that is always there, but we cannot help because there is no way we can get those kinds of information structured in data
Yes.
format.
Yes. Yes. I just want to give one example. Like recently during my visit to Mumbai, I was just speaking to a guy who is actually an Ola driver, and but again living in a slum only. And then he was saying in the morning he goes to the vegetable market. He just take that the wholesale sabji. He just get it and then he distribute to the street vendors. And then his income is like a monthly more than 50,000 or even a 60,000 rupees. Apart from that, so what I mean to say is it's a multi jobs which they have it. So morning, so very stipulated, like, morning they have something the whole day, then maybe sometimes evening they have some street food or something like that. And seasonal jobs also they have, like during the festivals and all that, say they do even take care of that kind of a thing. So I think these kind of a lot of variables may also impact on the study. I feel.
Yeah, but it depends on the city. Mumbai is
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
Mumbai, probably this kinds of study is not fit for Mumbai. This is the
Hmm.
study which is more fit for cities like Lucknow, Kanpur, Jaipur,
Hmm.
uh, maybe cities like this. Mumbai is a different economic uh, complexity. When I remember when I visited Dharavi,
Hmm.
so uh, the rent in many places within Dharavi, the housing rent is more than 20,000 rupees.
Yeah.
So it's not very cost effective to live in Dharavi, and many family in Dharavi actually earn more than a lakh rupees,
Correct.
and their families or at least their children, they are very much very well educated. They
Hmm.
go to uh, uh, very good schools, speak fluent English, but they live within that kinds of an environment and take opportunity of that economy of Dharavi. Dharavi's economy is completely
Yes.
like unmatched to any other slums. So they are not very unhappy with the situation in Dharavi. The only thing they are unhappy probably with the water logging during monsoon, or they do not have the piped infrastructure. So if they improve that, those kinds of renewal or regeneration projects may not require at all. They don't seek for Adani or Ambani's to make their
Yeah. Vertical
they are
slum
quite
or
well off.
something.
They only need some basic infrastructure, and they are earning a lot of money. It's not that they are not all of them. There are, of course, there are areas where rag pickers are there, but those who are working in those industry in Dharavi, leather industry or pottery or any other kinds of industries, they are quite well off in Dharavi context.
Thank you. I just want to know like the others questions and all that. So thank you so much, Arindam.
Thank you.
Sir, I have a question on a different spectrum of groups, young MIG couples, for example. I was working with a group of students last semester when we had to do housing. And so we conducted a small study in our city. I'm from Hyderabad. I'm visiting faculty at a local architecture college. So we found that I know that your study is in a different city with a different group of people, but just a question. Now these people you're talking about in Dharavi are actually earning a lot of money, but are happy with the lifestyle that slum offers. But looking at young couples who are starting a family, who have like fixed incomes of 50,000 or 1 lakh or 1,20,000 per month, and who are looking to buy houses in a better condition. We did a very small survey because we're working with students. We found that the people who were interviewed found it very difficult locally to find something that they can afford, because, and one of the reasons we were able to judge is because all the new housing, closed societies, they come up with so much of additional costs of these gyms that nobody uses, or so many other amenities that people don't use. And in Hyderabad we have a very strong design factor, which is vastu. I know it has creeped into different states as well, but that discourages or completely eliminates common walls. And so now these people, like very young families who are, buying cars on EMI and now want to buy an apartment, they have no, because these are all high rise, they're coming up in the west part, as the government is projecting that as the, the boom for the real estate sector. So everyone wants to buy there, but not only are these inefficient, they are very small rooms, they don't really have any return on investment value, because if you're buying an apartment on the 32nd floor now at the age of 30, and these are not very high quality constructions. And so, how are we as an urban society on the whole taking these decisions? I'm a little concerned about, what are we, where is this going, sort of, if you can throw some light on that.
There is a
So
difference when we have a demand versus supply. And in MIG, especially suppose the example that you have given, a young couple starting their family and looking for housing in a very expensive city like Hyderabad, is always a challenge. There are two options only. One is that they go for a 20 years horizon of repayment and buy a house, or they choose to be in rental housing for 20 years. Uh, I don't know. We do not have any study of the choice factor in terms of these kinds of an socioeconomic situation of a household of a young couple. But the problem is that the demand of such demand is not being made in especially in Indian context, where let's say you have serviced apartments or a one bedroom apartment or a one bedroom plus kitchen or one bedroom 1.5 bedroom apartments or buybacks options So there are many different options that are different financial and housing or infrastructure or real estate options that are there available in the West. But we do not have that whole lot of packages. So in our case, it is very difficult for to give an answer or to give someone of a young couple to give an option to either buy or rent a house. But yeah, that would be an interesting choice study that what they prefer or what they choose in different cities. But I'm sure there might be different choices. In terms of demand, in terms of supply, I don't think there is a much study by the even by the real estate companies to have different categories of housing supply in different parts of the city or put different combination of housing so that all these different demands are made. So that's probably, I don't know whether it answers to your question, but that probably is a consideration.
Right, right. Yes. Thank you. No, it throws some light on it and we can explore a little further. But of course, a lot more study has to go in. There's also the aspect of transportation. All those
Yeah.
newer parts of the cities, they are very well connected by so-called metro, but there is no last mile connectivity. So the people who come to help in these new housing societies, they don't have buses and they don't have, like smaller transport, which they have to walk, and the footpaths are there, but there are no bus stops, so the buses don't come. So it is a bit of a mismatch in the way our master plans are sort of expanding. So it is just an observation. Thank you.
Yeah, when we did our study of our varying housing cost vis-a-vis housing plus transportation cost in different region that we have shown, and even for EWS and LIG, we found that there are variation. When we consider only housing costs, then some area looks more costly, unaffordable. But when we consider housing plus transportation cost, those areas become relatively affordable than the other one. So that's a very strange in terms of our findings in terms of unaffordability. But the question is, when a family or a household decide their location, especially who has the choice to either purchase or rent a house in different parts of the city, whether they make all those consider or whether they consider all those attributes and make those decisions, that we don't know. Like we assume that since the economists suggest that we assume that everyone takes their decision based on high maximization of their utilities. But I don't know whether it is being consciously done when a family takes a housing plus transportation. And it becomes more critical when suppose somebody do not travel at all. Somebody is work from home and his or her spouse is opposite, doesn't work from home. So then how they will manage? Who will take a call that whether I don't travel says 5 days a week. So in my case, the housing cost is more considered. But my spouse is like both travel a lot within the city. So then for her or him, it should be H plus T. But do the families take a decision based on all these complexities or all these variables? That we don't.
That's right. That's right. It is a unique dialogue, and we need to delve more deeper into it.
Sometimes it's just a irrational choice, not rational choice, but
Yes,
irrational choice more goes with the flow rather than actual rationality.
that's right. That's right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You can unmute yourself and ask questions. So I think sometimes people come up with questions later. It is not immediately after the presentation. So maybe they can reach out to you with their questions at a later date. But thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule and joining us in our dialogue. Um, I don't think we have any question here in the chat box as well. So maybe they'll reach out to you later. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Arindam. Really interesting. And, again, the any topic with the social or, very difficult to handle. And I really appreciate the challenge taken by your scholar and nicely presented because lot of variables, lot of things which is not in the hand of even the research scholar and even in any even government departments also whenever they made it. But now the situations are so dynamic. And so I don't know whether still that LIG, MIG, the definition still it exists to the present scenario. And even and that cannot be a very same for all the cities and all the things also, because as you rightly said, Mumbai things is a very different than the Hyderabad, than the even the north any of the cities. So I think somewhere these kind of a set of definition, because most of the scholar they take that as a benchmark and then they study, that kind of a standard, and they study further. So definitely with these challenges is a really good effort, and I'm sure the people who are present here must have got really good. I'm sure there all must be a research scholar, or maybe the faculties who are maybe the guide, or maybe sometimes as a scholar itself or a faculties will definitely help them. And to all the scholars or the presenter, the people who are present here, we're also making these videos which are available on our YouTube, and they can also see once we edit it and do it. The final version can also people can refer it. So this is what, and really thank you, Arindam, and would be very happy to have you here
Thank you.
in campus again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.